Daylight executions and fire bombings are on the rise in Australia as Underworld figures fight for control of the illicit tobacco industry, which is generating $13 million a day.
The notorious Italian mafia boss Matteo Messina Denaro has died in custody at the age of 61.
Painting a picture of an alleged police witch hunt against him and the alleged collusion of police with his business rivals.
Former mafia boss Michael Franzese knows this power struggle well. Born into New York's violent Colombo crime family.
Well, some shocking video now coming from New York. Police say it's an attempted mob hit caught on camera. Take a look. This happened Wednesday in the Bronx.
Power, control, fear. These men built empires that stretched beyond the streets, past the bars of prison cells, and deep into the very fabric of society. Some ruled with an iron fist, their names whispered in fear. Others played the game so well they walked away clean, or so they'd have you believe. But here's the real question. Can a true crime boss ever leave the life behind, or do they just get better at hiding? Even now in 2025, their legacies are far from over. Some still pull strings from the shadows. Others have reinvented themselves, slipping into the world of business, entertainment, and influence while keeping one foot in the game. This isn't just a history lesson. These figures are still making moves, and today we're exposing them. 1. Kenneth Supreme McGriff. New York's Supreme Team wasn't just another gang, it was an empire, and at the top sat Kenneth Supreme McGriff, a mastermind of drug trafficking, violence, and connections. McGriff didn't just deal drugs, he reshaped the streets, but McGriff wasn't satisfied with just street power. He wanted legitimacy. He found a way to wash his blood money into the music industry, allegedly backing labels like Murder Inc. Imagine that the very beats glorifying the streets were, in part, funded by the very crimes they rapped about. Then came the murders. McGriff's name is linked to high-profile hits, including the killing of Run DMC's Jam Master Jay and an attempted assassination on 50 Cent. In 2007, the law finally caught up to him. A life sentence should have ended his reign. But here's the thing, power like his doesn't just disappear. Even behind bars, whispers of his influence still echo through the streets. The question is, just how deep do those roots go? 2. Raphael Edmond. If Washington, D.C. had a kingpin in the 80s, it was Raphael Edmond. A young mastermind, he turned the capital into a hub for cocaine, flooding the streets with product and cashing in millions. His network wasn't just powerful, it was untouchable. With direct ties to Colombian cartels, Edmond's empire was airtight. He lived large fancy cars, luxury homes, and the kind of wealth that made him a legend. The authorities took him down in 1989. But Edmond wasn't just another street dealer. Even in prison, he was conducting business, orchestrating drug deals from behind bars. The system locked him up, but they never took away his power. And that raises a disturbing question. If a man can control an empire from prison, does he ever really lose? 3. Demetrius Big Meech Flannery. He wasn't just a drug lord, he was a celebrity. Big Meech built the Black Mafia family into one of the most infamous drug operations in American history. He blended crime with culture, making BMF a name that stood for both danger and glamour. Big Meech didn't just sell drugs, he sold a lifestyle. He threw extravagant parties, rubbed shoulders with hip-hop royalty, and made BMF a brand that was bigger than just crime. Law enforcement tried to shut it down. They sentenced him to decades in prison. But here's the twist, Meech's name still holds weight. His influence still lingers in the music industry. His story still inspires. And with his brother, Southwest T, out of prison, one can't help but wonder, is BMF really finished, or is it just evolving? 4. Haitian Jack. Most criminals crave attention. Not Haitian Jack. He thrived in the shadows. A known extortionist, drug trafficker, and enforcer, he was feared in both the criminal world and the music industry. He had ties to major rappers, and his name was whispered in connection to the 1994 shooting of Tupac Shakur. Tupac himself called him out, painting him as a snake in the grass. But Jack never responded. He didn't need to. He was the type of man who didn't talk, he acted. For years, he remained a ghost, slipping in and out of the public eye. Some say he's gone legit, others say he's still pulling strings in the underground. But one thing's for sure, his legend hasn't faded. 5. Guy Fisher. Harlem's heroin trade in the 70s and 80s was controlled by one name, the Council, and at its peak, Guy Fisher was one of its most powerful figures. But what made him different? He wasn't just a drug dealer, he was smart, he was strategic, and in a move no one saw coming, he bought the Apollo Theater, one of the most historic landmarks in black culture. For a moment, it seemed like Fisher was breaking the cycle, that he was turning his empire into something legitimate. But the past caught up with him. In 1984, he was sentenced to life in prison. Then, in 2020, something unexpected happened. He walked free, released on a medical pardon. But why? And what is he doing now? Some say he's changed, others say a man like him never really leaves the game. 6. Jamila Davis. She didn't need drugs or guns, she used her mind. Jamila Davis built an empire through fraud, scamming banks and investors for millions. She lived the high life, rolling in wealth until the law caught up. She served her time. Now she's a motivational speaker, an author, a supposed cautionary tale. But is she truly reformed, or has she simply found a new hustle? 7. Freeway Ricky Ross. Few names in the drug game carry as much weight as Freeway Ricky Ross. He wasn't just another dealer, he was the dealer. The man who flooded America's streets with more cocaine than entire cartels. At the height of his power, Ross was a king without a crown. His distribution network was massive, supplying crack cocaine across the US. His name was feared, his business unstoppable. But what made Ross truly infamous wasn't just his empire, it was his connection to something much bigger. His operation was linked to the Iran-Contra scandal, a political nightmare that exposed secret US government involvement in drug trafficking. That's right, the same government waging a war on drugs was indirectly fueling Ross's empire. When the truth came out, it shook the country. Ross was eventually taken down, sentenced to life in prison. But here's where the story takes a turn. His conviction was overturned. He walked free in 2009, and just like Jamila Davis, he reinvented himself. Today, he speaks out against the drug trade, warning others about the life that once made him rich. He's a so-called reformed man. But old connections don't just disappear. His name still carries weight, and in the underworld, respect is a currency that never loses value. So, has Freeway Ricky truly left the game behind, or is he still moving pieces behind the scenes? 8. Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover's name isn't just spoken in the streets, it's carved into them. His influence runs so deep that even decades behind bars haven't erased his power. He started small, leading a Chicago street gang. But he didn't stop there. He built an empire, the Gangster Disciples, one of the most feared and organized criminal enterprises in America. Drugs, violence, extortion. Hoover had a hand in all of it. But Hoover wasn't just about brute force. He was smart. He understood power. He knew that a kingpin could rule with more than just fear. From behind prison walls, he rebranded himself as a political figure, claiming he wanted to change his ways. He pushed for community activism, education, and economic development on the surface at least. But law enforcement wasn't fooled. They believed Hoover was still calling the shots, still running his empire through coded messages and secret networks. In 1997, they hit him with a life sentence under the harshest restrictions possible. Yet the legend of Larry Hoover hasn't faded. In fact, it's only grown stronger. Major artists, activists, and even celebrities have campaigned for his release, arguing that he's reformed. The streets still whisper his name with respect. So does Hoover still hold power, or has his myth outgrown the man himself? One thing's for sure, his name isn't disappearing anytime soon. 9. Christopher Dudas Koch. Unlike many drug bosses who basked in the spotlight, Dudas understood the power of staying in the shadows. His operation was massive, moving cocaine and marijuana between Jamaica and the United States. His gang, the Shower Posse, didn't just control the drug trade, they enforced their rule with brutal efficiency. But Dudas wasn't just a criminal. To many in his community, he was a protector, a provider. He funded schools, gave jobs, and ensured that his people had what they needed so long as they remained loyal. Then, in 2010, the walls started closing in. The US wanted him extradited, and Jamaica became a battlefield. His supporters fought to keep him free, and the resulting conflict left dozens dead. But in the end, it didn't matter. Dudas was captured, extradited, and sentenced to prison. That should have been the end. But men like Dudas don't simply vanish. His influence in Jamaica and beyond remains. His network didn't disappear, it adapted. So is he still running the game from behind bars? Or is his legend doing the work for him? Crime bosses don't retire. They don't just walk away. Even when they're locked up, their influence lingers. Some rebrand, some stay in the shadows, and some continue pulling strings without ever being seen. Kenneth McGriff, Raphael Edmond, Big Meech, Larry Hoover, Freeway Ricky, Dudas Koch. Some of them claim they've changed, some of them have changed, but the question remains, can you ever really escape a legacy like theirs? Or does the game always find a way to pull you back in? One thing is certain, these figures, whether in prison or free, still cast a long shadow over the streets. So what do you think? Are they truly out of the game, or are they just playing it smarter? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the Underworld's biggest players, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because the truth is, these stories never really end. They just keep evolving.